Okay, we got two people back. Oh my goodness. Ah, my goodness. Let me leave that on for a couple of moments while we get folks back here. All right, guys. Sixth time, yeah. Sue said third time was the charm. Is that 1,200,000? Yeah, music makes me want to dance. Yeah, I'm with you, man. It's not bad. Good mix of music. That's one thing that's lacking is my African music collection. I have some African music, but one of the problems with African music is that many artists don't make any money because it's piracy, and so you don't find the stuff widely available. It's frustrating, but that just kind of is how it is in Africa. So hopefully the African Continental Free Trade Agreement will address that in intellectual property, and we'll see what happens and maybe start protecting people's intellectual property. Yep. So I was telling a story. Now, what was that story while people come back on? I was talking about, I'm drawing a complete blank. I had to do all kinds of stuff just to get back online this time. So I've forgotten what I was talking about. Oh, gosh. Anyway, if somebody can remind me what the topic was, if anybody remembers it, and I'll get back to it. Telling a story. Yeah, dancing. I like the dancing. That's good. Gosh, what was that story I was talking about? Anyway. Um, oh, yeah, the South Africans in Paris. Yeah. Yeah, so all these South Africans in Paris were talking about, it's you're exaggerating, you're embellishing, but I wasn't. I was telling the truth. People just have to be careful when it comes to your travel to South Africa. Be smart about what you're doing, and you should be fine. But crime definitely is a serious problem. American tourists are not believing me about how not yeah no I'm not sure, Lindy. I'm not so sure I understand your point. Are you saying American tourists don't believe you, or don't believe me, or just don't believe that tourism in general is dangerous in South Africa, or South Africa is dangerous? Please, if you could explain what you mean there, so I can understand better. Yeah, it is. You can't deny it, folks, and people need to stop trying to deny it. I mean, denying it or misleading people doesn't help. That bus with those guys, the Dutch, who were robbed by the fake police, that was a very serious problem. The thing that really got my attention is two events in South Africa when it came to crime were just like, what is going on in this country? Well, three actually. The raping of toddlers to cure HIV 20 years ago. That just, anyway. So that was one. But the second one was when the train was going through Gauteng and people were traveling on the train, and these gangs were going on the train about 10 years ago or something like that, and they were throwing people off the train to their deaths and injury. What was that about? That went on for several weeks, and it came back and resurfaced, and then finally they finally put proper security on the trains. But they were throwing people to their deaths and maiming them off of trains. And was it like train spotting? We never really did get an answer on that. So that disturbed me. So the first one was the children. The second one was molesting children to cure HIV. The second was the trains, and there was a third thing that really disturbed me about South Africa. Oh yeah, so the propensity for these clowns to start throwing cinder blocks onto the highway to rob people. So this phenomenon is taking place on the R21, I think it is, that runs between Pretoria and Johannesburg down towards OR Tambo, the airport. And so a few years ago, these clowns is a generous term, these scoundrels, these nasty bastards were throwing cinder blocks and or putting them on the road so that people would run over them at nighttime and their cars would be disabled or damaged. They'd have to pull over. And they were robbing them and raping them. And they were raping everybody. They were raping men, they were raping women, and they're robbing them. It was unbelievable. And the fact that it happened mostly to white South Africans made me question whether this was intentional, was it really a crime of opportunity, or was it a crime of opportunity and an intent to put the fear of God or to terrorize people, which is what some people say the farm attacks are about, terrorizing people. And I think there's some merit to some of those attacks, not all of them, but certainly many of the farm attacks are done by organized syndicates. We've seen footage where farmers have put out cameras to monitor their property, and these people break in at night and they're carrying holsters with sidearms attached to their hip, kind of like police do or intelligence services, and they've got night vision goggles, they've got radios, and they're doing it in organized fashion. These are clearly not simple random crimes of opportunity in many cases, but not to get onto the farms, but that's just kind of kind of talking a little bit about crime in South Africa. It is genuine. And if you deny it, then you're not helping anyone. Now, if you embellish and you try to scare people away from South Africa because you're talking about crime, I don't think that's legitimate or fair either. It's a wonderful country full of wonderful people. Unfortunately, it doesn't have proper policing, and it certainly, amongst many members of a society of all skin tones, has a very low regard for life. And that's a very serious concern in South Africa. So, oh, the American tourist. That's yeah. So the American tourist were actually kind of scared by what the South Africans said because I told them they probably like, yeah, well, he's probably just saying that. Guys in the armies probably always thinking about. I mean, I don't know what they're thinking, but I got that impression. But then when the South Africans started, pulling their shirt back and showing the bullet holes in their bicep and the knife wounds here, and I can't turn my head anymore because I got hit here with a club. I mean, come on. So when the South Africans started telling, after the South Africans said that it was overblown, then the Americans were like this, white as a ghost. So yeah, anyway, it was interesting. That was at the airport. We had nothing else to do in the Charles de Gaulle airport in Paris. It was quite boring that evening, and this is what the conversation was. I'll never forget. That was 20 years ago, in 2000. Let's see. So General Phil was one has to just be wary in South Africa. Check if you've been followed or watched. Absolutely. You can't simply open your electronic gate and drive in. You have to be looking on both sides as you approach, see somebody's trying to stop you or damage your vehicle or bum rush you. And as you go in, you have to watch behind you to make sure the gate closes. If you have a property in which you have the ability to turn your vehicle, so when you come in, you can still face out to escape or run over an assailant. I'm not encouraging you to run over assailants. I'm just saying it's a technique. But if you pull in and out, you're very susceptible because your field of vision is damaged or it's blocked. And so if you have a property that allows you to come in and turn your vehicle so you can face to escape, or we call combat parking in the military, then you're ready for a quick escape. And also the amount of time that you're at risk because you can't see people coming in from behind is greatly reduced. But not everyone has that option. Not every yard's that big. But here's another option. If you live on a property in South Africa with a wall and a power gate, you pull into the place. As soon as the gate's closed, then use the time to move your car around, back it around so that you're facing, so you can exit to drive out the gate when you leave. And so you're not blinded when you enter traffic or enter the city streets. Just some advice to help people protect themselves. It's necessary. It really is. Let's see. So rainy season, Liberia, Ranger, Sunshine, Chinese Embassy, Monrovia next. Yeah. No, I was at the Chinese Embassy in Monrovia for the Red Army Day. That's the day that they celebrate the People's Liberation Army. I think it's August 1st, if I'm not mistaken. A big reception there. Of course, lots of photographs. I'm sure you got to fill out that dossier, keep track of things about the ambassador and about Ben, Lieutenant Colonel Wyatt and such. Anyway, yeah. Ben Louise, why do I know you? Do I know you from Zimbabwe or from agriculture, something like that? Or maybe it's LinkedIn. You don't have to answer the question, but I'm trying to, I keep seeing it and your picture's so small on my screen, but I know you from somewhere. Anyway, crazy stuff. And the USA schooling system also caps curriculum. What do you mean general inflatables caps curriculum? They control how much is in the content? I don't understand the question. Paulie says, FYI, Colonel, on your channel, apart from this live stream, it says two others. I saw that, Paulie. Very frustrating. And that's a YouTube thing. When you get cut off midstream with a live stream, it does that. When I did the 5-part, which was supposed to be 1-part live stream, the Stray Voltage last week or a few days ago, what happened is that the first 3 processed, even though it broke off, and then they were available. But the last 2, one of which was over an hour, and we were all together for a long time on that discussion. That one, I couldn't edit, I couldn't do anything to it, and it wasn't processed for a full day later, and then it finally came up. So anyway, again, I'm not paying to use YouTube to broadcast. They're providing this. They're making money off of it, and hopefully maybe one day I could make money off it, possibly, but that's not the intent. But I really can't complain when they're hosting it for free. I don't have to provide the server or the bandwidth or the processing power. So I can be angry about it, but anyway, let's see. Several people, Ben, several people have had brick cinder blocks thrown through the windscreens drove. Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely insane. The schooling question came up and then the stream, yep. Hey, Nicholas, welcome. We've been experiencing the shadow banning of Chris Wyatt on YouTube again tonight, whatever it is. but loss of connection several times here. And so ostensibly I've been on the air for 2 hours, but probably been on the air for about an hour and 20 minutes as we got people coming back. And so I appreciate folks who've come back. 2 more have just joined us. Thank you all for joining. Justigos, well, no normal rural criminal will run around with a cell phone jammer. Yeah, exactly right. You know, people who are just disadvantaged, who have no hope economically, who are being denied access to white monopoly power or white monopoly. Yeah, is that what it is? Anyway, they're not going to be living in townships and having access to night vision devices and holsters and modern new 9mm weapons and have Motorola brick radios to communicate. That just doesn't happen, folks. That is a syndicate of some sort. Now, a lot of people will say that is a political thing going on. I'm not making that argument, but I'm saying that that's an organized criminal syndicate that's doing that, not simply just a one-off 2 guys in the neighborhood who've been in Shebeen and had a couple bottles of Chibuku too many. And let's go, oh, the farmer, he's mean to us. No, this is organized. That's a fact. All right. So the first time you went to Australia, it took you a while to relax and not be so super alert all the time. When I came back, so I felt so scary. Yeah, no, it is very sad, Lindy. That's truly the case. You know, Australia has very good law and order for the most part too, and it's relatively safe there. You know, here in America, we still have lots of places where people don't even lock their doors at night. That's not a myth. That's not Hollywood. That's just life in America. Now, obviously not in major metropolitan areas. You are foolish if you do that. But in many places in the countryside, when I go walking around here, just as something I grew up with as a kid, when I see somebody on the road, I wave to them. And by the same token, lots of areas around here, not all the time, but a lot of places where I drive, the road's less traveled, I'll wave to people when I'm driving, just as a friendly sort of thing. You don't really have that kind of closeness in South Africa and that sense of security because of the abysmal policing that's taking place there. All right, so Nicholas says, in October 2018, I was in my entertainment area, was rushed by armed robbers, pillowcase over my head and a gun held to it, arms tied behind my back, and frog marched into the house and thrown to the floor. Well, thank God you're still alive, Nicholas. Thank gosh. I mean, you know, others have been less fortunate. It's this is the heartbreaking part about it. The 3 things disappoint me most about this is that we were on the wrong side in the minds of the ANC, and so they went to the socialist, the communist, and got their worldview from them. And it is poisoning South Africa to this day. Instead of having a liberal Western view of the world, my view, that's harming South Africa. So that's one thing that really disturbs me about it. Another is that the abysmal condition of education and the blaming of racism and apartheid on every failure of the ANC rather than accepting responsibility for the task at hand and destroying education instead of fixing it. So we have people who are suffering who need not suffer if they were only properly educated and could move into the working ranks and be entrepreneurs and such. And that's 2 of the things that disturb me. And the third thing is that how the country has such abysmal physical security. It's just horrible. So now this is a little bit of it's not scientific, but just a kind of assessment. And this is something I told people for many years. So if you go back to the police during apartheid, and for those of you who are from South Africa who were old enough to remember apartheid, certainly back to the 80s and before then, the police in South Africa during apartheid were very effective. They were effective at doing what they were supposed to do. And the police's primary job was, in large part, public order with a focus on protecting mostly the white minority, but not exclusively the white minority. And so they were successful at that. But part of the police's responsibility was to oppress dissent, black dissent in particular, and to go after black nationalists. And they were very efficient at that. The sad thing is that when South Africa transitioned to a democratic society in 1994, instead of pouring resources into taking the police state and the police and converting them into a public policing organization, one in which police walk the beat in the streets and know people in their neighborhood so that people trust the police and they can be counted on to do the right things. Instead of focusing on that and resourcing the police properly, paying police proper salaries so they can survive and have a life, instead of doing that and devoting money to developing true forensic capacity and capability and prosecuting things in the court system, the South African Police Service was turned into a patronage machine in some respects, and at various times has been neglected and not well equipped. I remember watching a Carte Blanche episode, probably 15 or 20 years ago, probably 20 years ago now, in which they did an undercover investigation talking about the stickers that go on the windscreen to show that you've been inspected. And so they went to the cops just to show that the corruption was everywhere, not just on one side of the aisle or one side of the ethnic divide. They found two SAPs, and these are the SAPs that they went to, and they said, listen, we have this combi and we want to get it tested, but we don't want to go through the process. So the cops accepted a bribe to sign off on their inspection thing so they get this sticker put in the windscreen. Carte Blanche then took the combi and tested it. 4 brakes, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. My recollection is that only one of the brakes actually worked at all. The other 3 were complete failures. And that one brake was working at 18% capacity. So if you were to take 4 times 100, 400% capacity, which is what you should have to brake, right? Or make it 100, but say 400%, only 18% of it was working. And that was the front brake on the driver's side. This is a vehicle that never should have passed inspection. It's a danger to the occupants and to other people on the road because he can't stop properly. But we know habitually those combis are full of people who can't afford to pay for taxis or take other transportation. And so 8, 10, 12, maybe 14 people jammed in this vehicle with only 18% of brake capacity. Why? Because 2 corrupt South African police officers took a bribe, a white Afrikaans-speaking cop and a black, I think, Zulu-speaking cop. And this is what we had. So those are the 3 things that truly disturb me about South Africa. Instead of fixing the police and providing for public safety and public policing in which cops know people in their neighborhood, we have not made South Africa safe. In fact, it's gone the other direction in many respects. It's less safe everywhere. During apartheid, if you were white, you rarely were a victim of crime, and certainly not a violent crime, the rare occasion being an MK terrorist action or something like that. But for the most part, if you're white, South Africa, you weren't a victim of crime. But today, nobody's safe. And for me, it became clear that that was the situation when Brett Kebble was assassinated in broad daylight in Johannesburg, in Sandton. When that happened, someone as powerful and wealthy, a billionaire, mining magnate, tied closely to ANC senior leadership, when he can be assassinated in broad daylight, well, then there's a problem. And so that made me concerned about South Africa from that point. Yeah, let's see. Let me go back here and see what I missed here. Yeah, Nicholas, I'm so glad that you're alive, my friend. Let's see. They also car remote jam your cars, so you always have to check if the car is locked. Yep, absolutely. Agree with the syndicates. Quite a few service rifles were. Yep. Okay. General Flavell says, out of all the provinces here in South Africa, Cape Town is the best place to raise children, in my opinion. Okay, well, that's cool. I hope that's true. I know that if I lived in South Africa, my top destinations for living I'd probably want to live in the area either in Stellenbosch or between Stellenbosch and Paarl and Franschhoek. That would be the place I'd want to live, is in that area, in the wine country there. I really like Stellenbosch. Another place that I've never been to, Nelson Mandela Bay, Port Elizabeth, so I don't know, but I've heard varying things about it. People who live there love it, but when they're honest, they say it's crime-ridden and the services are broken. So, yeah, but I hear it's quite natural, beautiful from a beautiful standpoint, the environment. The other place I'd want to live is I absolutely adore Pretoria. It's a wonderful location. I really, really enjoy it there for a lot of reasons. You can speak Afrikaans, you can speak English, you can speak Tswana. And so I speak all of those to some degree of proficiency, English to the best, of course. And so I enjoy that. Plus, it's a beautiful natural area. I like the valley, the ridge lines that are on the backside of Pretoria. It's just a lovely area. The weather's nice. The jacarandas are beautiful. I like the environment. And just the people, the black and the white folks who live in that area, generally I find them quite interesting. So it's pretty cool. And I'm even okay with calling it Shwana. That's the Shwana metropolitan area. It's Pretoria that I'm thinking of. And Pretoria, more specifically, Hatfield, and out by Menlyn, and then Brooklyn, places like that. So let's see. Your Army training kicked in, remain calm. Yeah, that's the thing, Nicholas. And something like that, calm, when you have a home invasion, calm is important, because the people invading, people forget, even if it's a syndicate, they have fear too. They don't know what to expect, and so they're oftentimes going to react to some things. Now, that's not going to save your life necessarily, or protect you, because some of these people are just also out for revenge. Some of this is political, but the best bet is to have a means to keep them outside. Quite frankly, if I were working with AfriForum or working with a farmers union or something like that, or also working with residential security services, there are some approaches that I don't see being done habitually in South Africa that I would recommend that people do. Simple things like I just told you about, how to operate your vehicle coming in. That's not something I've heard many people talk about, and it's a very simple measure to protect yourself both after you've pulled in and in the future when you depart. So anyway, it's just, I unfortunately had to live with terrorism, and no, not 9/11 terrorism. I'm talking about terrorism going back to the 1980s in Europe with the Red Army faction and others. having just missed getting blown up by a bomb in 1985 at the Frankfurt PX. And having lived with the security measures we had to undertake, rather draconian in the 1980s in Europe, as Americans living abroad because of all the terrorist groups operating there, mostly leftist. Anyway, so where else are we at here? So Lindy says, gentlemen, oops, I got PE isn't too bad. Yeah, I hear PE is not bad, but you're biased. Okay, province, not so much, but the town has lots to offer. Obviously much better under Athol Trollop. Yes, Athol Trollop, my current favorite politician in South Africa, but not in politics at the moment. Athol Trollop, please come back to the Democratic Alliance or start your own party. I used to feel the same way about Helen Zille. While I still respect her and find her very interesting, there's a lot of baggage tied to Helen that most of it's not her fault, but it makes it difficult for her to get traction on some issues. But Helen, to her credit, doesn't care. She'll call it like it is, and you got to respect that. So, but Athol is fantastic. I really like him. What South African food do you like? Well, I don't like KFC. I don't eat it here, and I don't eat it in South Africa. I love Romans. Oh my goodness. I love a good braai, especially with a good steak. I've eaten other things. I've had kudu before. I love biltong. Absolutely love biltong. Boerewors, no, that's not for me. That's not my sort of thing. Yeah, there's lots of things in South Africa I like about the food, and I love Indian food. Oh my goodness, Indian food in South Africa is phenomenal. It really is good. The only other place that challenges that I've had around the world, and I've eaten it everywhere except India, is London. London has phenomenal, amazing Indian restaurants, but Durban also has amazing restaurants, ones that will leave your tongue melting in your mouth and falling out. But yeah, so there's lots of stuff. Yeah, I do love biltong. Absolutely love it. Let's see. Nicholas says just outside Port Elizabeth. Pardon us, Mandela. Okay. Oh, Utenhage. Yep. Know that place. Polly says couldn't agree more. Life in Cape Town is so different to Johannesburg. Yeah, it is. Johannesburg is very different. Not a huge fan of Johannesburg itself. The Johannesburg, the metropolitan area, I'm okay with, but downtown, not a big fan of. Although I've been downtown. Last time I was downtown, I went to SAB and did another brewery tour. I've been there a couple times, and this time I got a lot of strange looks. Broad daylight during a work day, and people looked at me like, "Hey, dude, you're white. What are you doing here?" I'm like, "I came here for the brewery tour." Anyway, but I've been there several times. But I'm not a big fan of downtown Johannesburg. Outside the motorway that goes around the city, there's a lot of nice places. Then, of course, just inside the motorway, parts of it there. So, of course, Sandton is, I really like Sandton. Most people like Sandton. Let's see what else. Okay. Our transport system works for all races here in Cape Town. Well, that's good. Paulie happened to be fast bud. Okay. Even government schools are great. Yeah, General Flavor, so let's be honest here. So I'm not disputing that, but crime, violent crime is still a major problem in the Cape Town area, the greater Cape Town area, especially in the Cape Flats, is it not? And I think this doesn't help. It tarnishes a lot of things because the crime and the drugs and murders and things that take place. And maybe if folks get a control of that, the luster on the mother city would be restored to a much higher level. My view. I'd like to hear your opinion on it. Tell me what you think about that. So let's see. Nicholas, can you see Pete Holtzbach? Paulie says, well, you guys are talking to each other. Okay. I'd love to do something like Orania, but for like-minded people, do everything like it should be. Black, white, brown, work together and lawful. That would be nice. Just a ghost. That's a lovely dream. You need $30–40 million and the ability to buy some land and to have it near a major water source like the Orange River or something like that, and set up covenants and live within the laws, and you could make it happen. It would be interesting. General Flavell says, have I been to Kruger National Park? I've never been to Kruger National Park. I've been to South Africa 450, maybe 500 times, and I'm not embellishing, folks. I've been there a lot. I've never been to Kruger. I've driven past it in Nelspruit on my way to Mozambique, and I've been down to Maputo and come back, and I've been to Swaziland, but I've never gone up into Kruger. Now, in part, that's because I've been to amazing game parks in the Okavango and in Kasane in Botswana, and also on the Masai Mara and the Serengeti in Tanzania. And so I've seen those, and I didn't want to disappoint myself. I didn't get to Kruger because I was busy for a long time, and then I went to these other places, and I didn't want to be let down. I'll eventually get to Kruger, and when the dollar goes to 40 rand to the dollar, maybe I'll spend some time in Kruger in one of the nice lodges. Yeah, I have been to Tunungi in Madikwe. That's a game resort in Madikwe Game Reserve, which is in Northwest Province. It's on the border with Botswana, and it butts up against the gate, the border fence there, and so it's kind of an upscale. It used to be a bunch of farmland, range farmland for cattle, and folks bought out all these parcels, I think just before the end of apartheid, and then created one major game reserve. And so you see lots of the big five there. It's really beautiful. And honestly, it was the first time I ever got to see lions. I was there in the wintertime, and I did that on my way down to Pretoria to go to Loftus during the Soccer World Cup. And I watched Denmark play Cameroon, I think it was. Yeah, it was Cameroon at Loftus. And that's the day that I grew to despise the Vuvuzela. I hate the Vuvuzela with a passion I reserve for few things except leftist and criminals. That is the most annoying device. Someone sat behind me and blew behind, and I was under the overhang at Loftus, so all the sound reverberated around me. I wasn't in the open. And so it blew the whole time, and with spit was coming out of the end of it and dripping on my shirt. And I kept turning and asking him to stop, and he just ignored me. So yeah, I didn't. Denmark won that game, but that was the 2010 World Cup, and I had been at Madikwe just before that and following lions in the defender that we're riding around in the morning in the wintertime, watching the lions feed. They got a gemsbok. They took down a gemsbok, and about a dozen lions devoured a gemsbok in less than 10 minutes. There was virtually nothing left. It was amazing. Something else to see. Not so good for the gemsbok, but it was quite good for the tourist to watch that and to follow the lions around. And we found their spoor and followed that around, and then we found the lions. So let's see what else. Service delivery here is tops compared to Johannesburg. That's good. Just a Ghost, look for United Southern African Federation. Oh, okay. Not familiar with that, Paulie. Not seen chat here since 1606. Yeah, we see you. Our ranger friend, I see you. The problem is it had to restart. I keep getting cut off of these darn things. The chat's running, and it says that we have 12 viewers right now, and I've got about 8 participants in the chat, and that includes you. You're the most recent to join. So I'm not so sure. Maybe it was something's weird. Let's see. So Paulie says, crime view about Cape Town. Best thing to do is prevent police West Campus. Western Cape Police Force the best, perhaps. Problem is it's a national function. Yeah, problem with policing in South Africa is policing is a national function, and that the metropolitan police forces that still exist, like in Johannesburg and in Cape Town, a large part of their responsibility is for traffic enforcement, things like that. So it kind of causes problems. Yeah, it's a real problem. But law enforcement seriously needs to be taken better. Taken more seriously, I should say. So Botswana is beautiful. Went there in 2000. Botswana is amazing. It's a wonderful place. It's thinly populated, largely an honest country with very little corruption. But it does have problems. People think that it's just a success story. There are problems. There is some corruption there, particularly high-level corruption. But more importantly, there's still pervasive poverty. About half the population in Botswana lives on about $2.60 a day or less, and a lot of them on government assistance. So while there's a lot of people in the middle class and those in the high end, there are an awful lot of poor people still living in Botswana. And it has other challenges, HIV being one of them as well. But it is a serious country, and it is an interesting place to visit, and it was a good place to live. I enjoyed living there. So let's see what else we got here. Vuvuzela, like a massive bee sound. I guess to me it was just annoying. The Vuvuzela to me just reminds me of soccer, and once again, it's not a real game. Sorry. Anyway, makes your ears bleed. Yeah, and the spit that comes out of it. Roger, going to restart. Yeah, that'll probably get you going there. We'll see you back here in a second. General Flabel says our neighborhood watch in our area is faster than our police. Well, yeah, when I was in Hatfield many years ago, I noticed that in Hatfield, in Pretoria, which is an upscale neighborhood, American Embassy is located in Hatfield, and I stayed in a hotel there, that the security services, private security firms were working there, had armored cars like Rattels, similar to that, or the Buffaloes. And so they didn't have Rattel, they had a Buffalo, I think. They had those armored cars. They had the response time was less than 2 minutes in many cases. And so when I first ever went to Pretoria and I drove around, I saw these armored cars, and I asked them, I said, those are military vehicles, or they look like military vehicles, but that's not the military. I said, no, private security. They pre-position, they move around, they're mobile, so they can respond when there's a home invasion. I'm like, And that's one of the reasons why local patrols are much faster than the police. Police are strained, resource constrained, and they cover a wider area than some of these organizations. So it makes it challenging. All right, and I'm part of our. Oh, well, Nicholas, I would imagine after that event, no doubt you are. Nicholas, where did you live again? What town are you in? Are you in the Joburg area? Are you in Gauteng somewhere? Yeah, I want to make sure I stay away from that neighborhood. Well, you can't avoid it. It's all over in South Africa. You're going to find it everywhere. So, what do you guys think? Where are we going to get the 500 billion rand from? I like Ronaldo's the 500 billion rand man. Da, 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 da. It's like Steve Austin. We can rebuild the economy. We have the technology. We just need the determination to impoverish everyone as we state capture 500 billion rands. What will become of South Africa? We have the means. Yeah, well, where's the 500 billion rand going to come from? Well, a collection of money from the IMF, the World Bank, the BRICS Bank. What about your pension fund, South Africans? I would be paying attention to my balance on my pension fund and your savings accounts. I wouldn't put it past the government to raid those, pass a law that's convenient. Oh, Utenhage, that's right. You did say that earlier near PE. Thanks. Yeah, scary, scary, scary thoughts here. What's going to happen with the 500 billion? And then the bigger question is, which a lot of people rather cynically and with good reason cynically are asking the question, well, how much of that money will be stolen by cadres? It is a good question. I mean, we see it already with these multiple reports, many of them verified now, of cadres, of local ward councilors, stealing food parcels, or keeping them for themselves, or charging people to get a food parcel. It's just insane. And in the midst of the worst situation and putting people in the most horrible, miserable conditions, people would have the audacity, the temerity to steal openly like that. It's just really, really sad. Definitely going to be part of our pensions. Yeah, I think it is. And that's really, really sad because the NC has mortgaged your future with its malfeasance and its poor governance and its bad policies. Now, I'm not just going to beat up on the ANC. If we roll back to when it was still under Thabo Mbeki, not my favorite person, but the government was making progress. There was some economic growth year on year, and things were improving. Some schools were getting attention. There was efforts to do things. But with the advent of the Polokwane Conference and the unseating of Thabo Mbeki as the head of the African National Congress, and then his subsequent resignation as president of the country, which means the country is more important, or the party is more important than the country. Yeah, that's what happens here. That's just wrong to begin with. But when Mbeki was pushed aside and Zuma came in, since that time, we now have years and years and years of lost time for South Africa. And the coffers have been looted and drained, and there's nothing left. It's just such a sad, sad, sad mess. Anyway, BRICS, eye roll with the devil, poor emerging economies. Yeah, the BRICS. The BRICS is just is a fabrication of an economist who came up with the acronym. And it wasn't BRICS, it was BRIC. It was the BRIC. There was no South Africa in there. It was the Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And the idea 20 some years ago was these were emerging economies who had similar things and similarities, and they would emerge and grow in a similar fashion. Well, that was the concept. But the reality is that Russia's economy is not at all remotely similar to South Africa's, and China's isn't remotely similar to either one of them. Brazil's economy in some respects is similar to South Africa, but it's not like China. So the whole concept, and India is just a whole other story altogether. So lumping them together was just a little, it was something that an economist came up with to describe something. It was a useful tool for him, but it took off and had a life of its own. And people talk to the BRICS. Now we have a BRICS bank, we have BRICS meetings, but nothing comes of it. There's nothing real. There's nothing substantive there. The only member of the BRICS that has any economic weight is China. And 20 years ago, they didn't have any economic weight. So Russia would have been the kingpin of a very weak club. It's still a weak club, but China does have some heft now, pre-COVID-19. We'll see what happens after COVID-19. General Flavel says it's always being stolen. Zuma will make his comeback. Well, he's approaching 80, so he better make his comeback fast. Probably the Zuma faction, if that's what you mean. Yeah, the Zuma faction is still out there. I mean, one of them is a minister. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, she's a minister in Cyril Ramaphosa's government. His opponent in the election. You don't bring your opponents into government. You send them off to the wilderness, or you give them ambassadorship to Argentina, Tony Leon. Anyway, what a crappy bunch to be part of. Yeah, no kidding. It was supposed to be Nigeria, but apparently South Africa made a better acronym. I can send you a citation on it. Yeah, no, that was a discussion. And if Nigeria had been part of it, it actually would have made a lot more sense. And we see now with Nigeria having actually valued its economy with real measures of real tools for measurement now, and we see how large it actually is. Yeah, Nigeria has a huge economy, but Nigeria also has over 200 million people. South Africa has 57 million people. It's amazing that South Africa could have an economy as large as Nigeria without history. Just saying, 57 million people, 200 million people, they should be much larger. But of course, you know the history, and so South Africa's always had a stronger economy until recent years. With our luck, Zuma will be like Mugabe and live for a flipping effort. Yeah, but he's not president. He's not coming back. The Zuma faction might come back, but Jacob Zuma is not coming back in office. It just isn't going to happen. So however long he lives, that's fine. Mugabe, unfortunately, just refused to let go of the reign and power, the keys to the palace. And so people suffered for 37 years under his nonsense. Now, not all 37 years. There was a good start, and many people did much better as a consequence of it. The economy stabilized, grew. But then the thieving and this our turn to eat mentality eventually wore too thin for Zimbabwe, and that's what happened. Zuma is apparently looking for government funds to defend his. Yeah, yeah, he wants money. Is it true Lesotho has no? Yeah, well, it is true, General Inflatables, that Lesotho is reporting no confirmed cases of COVID-19. But I think that's highly suspect. I find it implausible to believe that the Basotho people, who have such close ties to the Basotho people across the border in the Free State, and many of whom lived in South Africa for employment and traveled back to Lesotho, that nobody has COVID-19 in Lesotho. I think this is simply a function of people not being tested because of a broken or virtually non-existent public health care sector. I think that's what's happening. There clearly have to be some cases in Lesotho, but we're not getting any reported cases. So I guess they're like North Korea, COVID-free. Somehow I don't believe that. We shall see. Going to be great watching that clown try to defend himself now having ditched his legal team. The rest of the world must be laughing at you. Well, General Inflatables, here's the reality. The world isn't really watching South Africa. That's the sad truth. And that's why the ANC can get away with a lot of its actions and no one make a big deal. I probably will never get a job with World Rugby unless they're forgiving, because I've been very critical of World Rugby for not stepping up and saying something about South Africa's racist policies on rugby. During the 1980s, Nas Botha only got 28 test matches as a Springbok because the South Africans were banned to the wastelands of international competition because of apartheid, a racist policy of discrimination and segregation. Yet the ANC is promulgating a policy of racial segregation and discrimination with its quota system in rugby, and selecting Springboks. So why was World Rugby, which had been the International Rugby Board prior during apartheid, why was it not stepping forward and calling for South Africa to be banned from participating in the Rugby World Cup or international competitions? Now, I don't want that to happen, but World Rugby should have stood up and had a voice in this, but they didn't. They sat silently by. Now, fortunately, those policies were ignored or pushed aside during Rassie Erasmus's era, and we got a World Cup out of it by picking, if not the best players, South African players, some of the very best South African players, and we got the result we were looking for. But the policies of the ANC government when it comes to selecting rugby players need to be questioned. And the International Rugby Board, or its current instantiation, World Rugby, has not done a good job of that. They were certainly active in attacking South Africa when apartheid was the issue, but they have not been active in saying anything about the policies that SARU, the South African Rugby Union, had promulgated for a period of time there. So we'll see what happens again. Anyway, Taiwan, no lockdown. I don't know if Taiwan had a lockdown. I think they didn't. Yeah, North Korea must be. Yeah, North Korea is just it's a vacation spot. It's so popular that they won't let anybody in. And if you do get in, you'll never get out. Let's see. Lindy says, sickly, can't go to court. Shame. Oh, just like Sheikh Shabir. Yeah, Sheikh Shabir was so deathly ill, his life in jeopardy, that, within a week of being discharged for his medical reasons, he was on the golf course. Lovely drives he was having on the golf course. Yeah, Sheikh Shabir. Anyway. No, General Fables, don't be sorry for all the questions. I'm just glad we're actually talking for about 40 minutes. I'll see if we go a little bit longer, because this, and I'm going to have to do a lot of editing and fix these things later on, folks. But we got 10 folks here, and people seem to be enjoying it. No further comments. Straight on, Colonel. I'm sure the world rule to sanction our apartheid days still exists, but overlooked. Yeah, no, Nicholas. How can you? Okay, let's talk a little bit about racism. So the problem I have is that a lot of people resort to using the term racism whenever somebody's being a bigot. A bigot or bigotry is learned behavior. It's you learn about someone and you learn something incorrect, or you attribute something to someone based on your bigotry, your bias against them. And it can take evil forms. But racism is in your heart. People who are racist truly believe that they are better or superior to other groups of people based on race. And race is an artificial creation. We're all human beings, all Homo sapiens. The difference between my DNA and your DNA is infinitesimal. And so the pigmentation of my skin and your skin is simply an accident or a consequence of development of time and history. It's not something innate. A black person, a white person are still human beings. So racism is when someone believes that one race is superior to another. And for those of you who are on Ronaldo Host program, Tutu was trolling me the other day, telling me to watch this video with Sean Hannity and some Khalid Muhammad or something like that guy. So I went and listened to the video. And in the first 3 minutes, this guy, Khalid or Muhammad, whatever his name was, said that black people are superior to white people. Come again? They're not. And white people aren't inherently superior to black people. And if you believe that, then you are racist, because that's the textbook definition of racism, believing a group is superior to another based on race. But most of what happens to society is bigotry. People say or do dumb things based on dumb ideas in their heads. And that's what I'm talking about. So I don't know if any of you in South Africa are familiar with this, but we had this television program in the 1970s called All in the Family with the character was Archie Bunker, and Carol O'Connor was the actor. Archie Bunker. Yeah, Nicholas, he's not. Yeah, he just uses Tutu because he's appropriating Desmond Tutu's name. He thinks it's clever. He thinks it'll make him look middle of the road, a reasonable person, because Desmond Tutu is largely middle of the road, reasonable person. This guy Tutu is just trolling people on Ronaldo Ho's channel. Anyway, yeah. So a racist, it's in their heart. They're not going to change, but a bigot can change. And the story I remember is watching this sitcom, this situation comedy with All in the Family, Archie Bunker as a child. And Archie was a bigot. He hated everybody. He hated, if you were women, he didn't like you. If you were gay, he didn't like you. If you were Polish, he didn't like you. If you were Catholic, he didn't like you. If you were black, he sure didn't like you. If you were Jewish, he didn't like anybody, unless you were white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, male. And that is the epitome of bigotry. Not because he thought he was better than anyone else, just because he knew all these dumb things about people that he'd learned growing up or been inculcated with. So what happens is, eventually on the program, he has to go to the hospital and gets a blood transfusion. And the blood transfusion is from a black man. So Archie Bunker, does this mean I'm black? Well, I'm making light of this, but the point is Archie Bunker discovered that the black folks that donated blood were just like him, and he's alive because he got blood from a black donor. My point is that with bigotry, you can unlearn this behavior. It may be difficult in some cases, but people can unlearn bigotry. But racism is in someone's heart, and you can find it very hard to change a racist, very hard. There are far fewer racists than the people who whine about racism proclaim. There are some out there, but the numbers are very small, even in South Africa. Although it seems like a lot more in South Africa than there are here. But bigots are everywhere. People are bigoted against people all the time, and those are just wrong lessons. Like Jews are tight with money. Don't clip that out of my video and say, look what Wyatt said. No, I'm making a sarcastic example. That's bigotry. That's a stereotype, and saying that is bigoted. It's not at all illustrative of the entire Jewish community around the world. It's just a stereotype, and it's wrong to do it. So Paulie says Molanta had been given a fair chance, he would have left off where Tabo did. He's been critical of ANC for a long time. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, but he was a caretaker when Zuma was tossed out and we waited for CR to come in. So maybe he was important in the election investigation after the Zimbabwe security services fired on protesters from the opposition parties with last year's elections. He actually was part of the commission that led that investigation, and the investigation was pretty thorough and pretty accurate. He did a good job. I think he's a fairly reasonable guy and has a good head on his shoulders. But the problem in the ANC is not always the head of the party. It is the cadres and the people that are appointed to positions, and that's the real challenge in South Africa. Is that you don't vote for candidates, you vote for a party list, and then they select whatever chuckleheads they want to be your representative at the provincial, the national, and the local level, and that is not healthy. in my view. You should have to run for office and campaign to earn your job, not be given it as a consequence of political patronage. And so you can have a strong leader, but when he's got a bunch of chuckleheads under him that the party selected so that the party would come first, not the people and the nation, this is the problem in South Africa, or one of the problems. We should all accept each other for who they are and not what they look like. Well, that was Martin Luther King's dream. He hoped that one day in this country, children would not be judged on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. And in many parts of the world, that just simply doesn't happen. People look at you and go, aha, white monopoly capital. What? Or black criminal. No. No, you should judge people on who they are and how they behave. I don't distrust people instantaneously. I may be weary of people in general in certain circumstances, but I don't judge people until they make an ass out of themselves or they give me a reason to judge them unfairly, or not unfairly, but accurately. Nicholas says, Tutu as in Ronaldo's channel. Yep, that bloke is a nutter. Yeah, he played. I don't have the software. He's on his mobile phone. He doesn't have the software. I don't have a microphone on my phone. Really? Then what's your phone for? Draining batteries? 3 blood transfusions, an odd feeling. Didn't care. Yeah, didn't care where it came from because it saved your life. Yep. Thanks to all who donate blood. Yep, that's important. I can't donate blood. I think I mentioned this in the previous stream because I ate beef in Germany in the 1980s that the Army had sourced from the United Kingdom. And because of the prions from British beef, I'm prohibited from donating blood. Only like in a zombie apocalypse could I donate blood. Otherwise, I'm not allowed to donate blood. Otherwise, I would. I've done it in the past. And I've sold plasma when I was a hungry college student, too. Let's see. Paulie, it came after Becky before Zuma. No, but Malanta was just a caretaker for 1 year between those, or not for a year. It was like 10 months, something like that. Yeah. No. Yeah, never voted for him. Yep, absolutely. Well, so let's see what else. You can't donate blood. Well, before I found out about that prohibition, I was frequently prohibited from donating blood because I kept coming from malaria regions. And when you come from a malaria region, you're not normally allowed to donate blood for like 3 or 4 months or something like that because they want to make sure there's no parasites or malaria meds in your system that could affect the blood. So, but yeah, I basically can't donate blood. So it's really good when people do donate blood. It really makes a difference. And especially in a time like this, blood banks are probably very low on resources now because people can't get away or haven't thought to get away to donate blood. So it's important to go out there and donate if you can, folks. All right. I don't want to jinx this. We've been talking for about 48 minutes. I think it's getting late in that part of the world. It should be around 11:30 there in South Africa. And we've been talking almost exclusively about South Africa today. I hope that people don't mind about that. Since I'm wearing the Stormers jersey, I guess I can get away with it. But do you have any other questions or you want to talk about anything? You want to talk about the 500 billion? You want to talk about, what about the red ants? Let's talk about the red ants. Yeah, let's talk about the red ants. So Lindy says, in a zombie apocalypse, you can also, donate brains. Yeah, I'll pass on donating the brains. What the heck is that little emoji? Yeah, it's 11:30. Let me talk about the red ants real quick before. And if I get cut off at this stage, ladies and gentlemen, we'll just call it a night, okay? As it's getting late, and I really appreciate people coming back, but I know the frustration with the channel being cut off. But let me start talking about the red ants, and then we'll discuss that a little bit. And if we get cut off, that'll be it for tonight. And again, let me thank you all for tuning in and for being patient and jumping from cutoff stream to cutoff stream to cutoff stream. I really enjoy it. I appreciate the interaction. You guys are fantastic. Please share my channel with your friends and your foes. Let your enemies know. Let people like Tutu know to come check out my channel and see if they find it interesting and subscribe to the channel. It'd be great. I've really been not overwhelmed, but maybe a little bit humbled by all the people who've joined and the interaction we've had late. I find it interesting. I enjoy it. I think that you all enjoy it, but we get some more people on here and maybe it'll be more interesting. So the red ants, for those who are following events, last week in Johannesburg, the red ant security, eviction, and relocation security firm, a Black economic empowerment tender winner, and a majority-owned company, which specializes in kicking people out of informal settlements, went out into